Hi, welcome to Future Fast. And like always, we have a very interesting guest today with us. And before I bring in a guest, I just hope you're enjoying Future Fast as much as we do in bringing it to you. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I really urge you to look around. In the Future Fast podcast, we have amazing conversations from across the globe, and you will also find contradictory perspectives coming in, and it is very deliberate that we bring in those contradictory perspectives just so that we all do an informed opinion on anything rather than be just carried away by the popular perspective. And having said that, if you have not yet subscribed to Future First, do it right now. And with that, I want to bring in Pawas Krishna Agarwal. He is the founder and managing partner PathFinders Knowledge Advisory, and what they do, we will hear it from him in the course of our conversation. And he was also the former board member of NMIMS University and also board committee member with Tata AIA. So, with that, Pawas, thank you so much for being part of Future Fast. Welcome to Future Fast.
Thank you, Nanju. And I know I can safely call you Nanju instead of Nanjunda. Uh,
Perfect.
and thanks for the introduction to Future Fast. I already know that Future Fast is doing a great job. With you at the helm, and I think it's a great platform, great place where people actually can look up to, as you said, differing views and then take informed decisions about the so-called view of the future.
Right. And I also try to get people like you to share your perspective and how you're preparing for your future. And the whole idea of this conversation is to get to understand where you come from, because what you do, how you do, and how you prepare for future and your perspective on future will have a better understanding if you understand where you come from. So with that, can you please share your journey with our listeners and audience, please?
Oh, sure. So, I think that's a very important point, actually, Nanju. All of us are shaped by our past, uh, whether it's people, whether it's corporate entities, whether it's anyone. I mean, any entity is shaped by its past. And, uh, Steve Jobs made this very historic uh, talk at Stanford University on connect the dots. And I'm a strong believer, firm believer in that concept of connecting dots do connect. And I'm sure you have also seen this in your own life, personal life, professional life. And I have seen this play out many, many, many times in my own life, personally and professionally. Something I did, randomly 10, 20 years ago, uh, suddenly manifests itself into something, uh, 10, 20 years later, for my benefit, in that sense, or sometimes to my detriment as well. But I think the dots do connect eventually. So, just
Powers, what you just said just got one of the guests in the podcast actually said that when you look back 20, 25 years, the journey looks very linear, but if you actually think about it, it's all preparing to today. So,
Yeah, yeah,
fine.
absolutely. Today and the future as well. Today and the future as
Yes,
well.
right.
So it's a good. So thanks, Manju, for that. Addition. So I actually grew up pretty much all over the country. I want to start from there. My dad had a transferable job, so with that we moved around. I grew up in Calcutta, Delhi, and Chennai. So most of my schooling was in Chennai, and last few years of my schooling was in the hostel. And that actually, along with that, some stuff also came up during school, like I joined the National Cadet Corps, NCC. We had a very connected principal, school principal, with whom I connected very, very well. And I also was a school captain, did a lot of stuff in school, besides, of course, being a good, traditional student, as you call it, good in studies and so on. So I think with that, my boyhood shaped me up to what I am. It gave me a lot of confidence to do what I want to do later on in life. It gave me a lot of discipline, to do what I want to do things with discipline. I think the NCC taught me that, and so stuff like that. All good things started from there in my life. Of course, I also learned some bad habits later, which I have thankfully given up. But so
Okay.
that's there. But from there, from Chennai, I actually went on to do my graduation at IIT Kanpur. I learned chemical engineering, or and so on, and then from there I moved on to do my MBA from IIM Calcutta. So that was a good, academic career, so to say. Good foundation, good in an Indian context. Surely, these were the best institutes to get into, go through, and then get on with life later on, right? So that's what happened with me. I didn't work very hard towards these, but it happened. So that's what that. Then actually, so very quickly, just to take you through my corporate career after that, I joined something called the Tata Administrative Service (TAS) from campus from IIM Calcutta, and TS, you might have heard TAS as it's called in short, is a leadership program by the Tatas. It was actually started by JRD Tata in 1956 on the lines of the IAS model. So just like the Indian government has the IAS civil services, they sort of recruit centrally, train them centrally, and then sort of grow them in a rotation basis across different government entities. So GRD Tata at that point in time, in its own wisdom, 1956, started the TAS for the Tatas, and it's still there. It's still there. It's a very coveted job to get in. It's pretty much you know. Uh, I think the funnel is also as is sharper than trying to get into IITs or IIMs. In my time, when I got in 1999, I remember there were some 7,000 applicants across the country, and 15 of us got in. So that's a pretty sharp funnel to go through in terms of selection. So anyway, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Pawas, is it TAS hires people straight out of school, or is it also for laterally people who are working with Tatas are also made to
Hmm.
go through TAS? How does
So,
that work?
yeah. So in my time, it was pretty much through two routes primarily. I'm talking about late 90s. One was the premier campuses on the country, the IIMs and XLRIs and so on and so forth. And they also used to put out a newspaper ad. Uh, and the only conditions were three of them. One, you had to be an Indian citizen. Two, you had to be a postgrad. And I think three, if you're applying through the newspaper ad, then you had to have some, maybe I think 2 years of work experience, which was waived off for people who joined through campuses. So these were the only two routes at that point in time. But I think later on they became more inclusive. So campus continued. They discontinued the newspaper ads, but they started recruiting internationally. So they went beyond the shores of India. They went to London Business School, Harvard, stuff like that. The Ivy Leagues across the world. They started recruiting from there, and they also opened up to other Tata employees to get into TAS through a selection program. So these are the three routes now as we speak. I think, but I think the funnel sort of is pretty much sharp as well. They have increased the intake of number of people. In my time, 25 years ago, it was just 10 to 15 people would get in every year. But now they have increased the batch size to about something like 30 to 40. But I think that's also in one sense valid because the group has grown manyfold since last 25
30
years
to 40 annually.
annually. Annually.
Right.
And the group has grown manyfold, in terms of its size and complexity and the width, geographical width, and they're also looking for leadership talent to groom. So I think they are surely increasing the batch size as years go by. But I think the funnel remains, it's whether it's 15 on 7,000 or 30 on 7,000, I think it's just a number.
Right. But most of the leadership of Tata companies come from TAS, right? Barring a
So
few, of course.
yeah, so it's see, a TAS only gives you an entry point. It gives you so one is I think if one has got into TAS, certain tick boxes have happened in terms of whether the person is academically sharp, whether the person is wholesome in one sense, beyond academics, this person has interests which are strong and deep, whether this person has leadership qualities, energy, things like that have been ticked, kind of thing, right? Now, after that, they put you through the first few assignments in the group are curated. For the first 5 years of a career of a task officer is curated by the group office. But after that, the task officer is pretty much on his own, on her own, and then this person has to move around through the network of that this person has built over a bit of time. And leadership positions are entirely merit based. So uh, uh, when the board of a company uh, or the senior management of a company is looking to hire some leadership for leadership roles, they look at everyone. It's not that they only are blinded by the pool of
Okay.
task officers. It's pretty much open to everyone. But just because a task officer has gone through a certain background, in terms of its profile as well as experiences, that person is logically and intuitively better placed to take on the leadership position. And if the selectors at that point in time see that, and this person is able to show that, then this person gets the leadership role. Otherwise, it goes to someone else. So it's pretty much merit based. It's just an entry point.
Um, Makes sense. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it so big. Pawas, before
Yes.
you continue, I just want to take you two steps back. This has been, I'm being curious about this, that why
Hmm.
is it that IITs produce least number of engineers? You know where I'm coming from,
Yeah,
right?
I
I
know what
mean,
you're saying. I know what you're saying. So, you know, uh, so first of
and
all,
if I can
yes.
add to it, and
Hmm.
most bankers, which is so ridiculous for an
Yeah,
engineering
yeah,
institute.
yeah.
Why so?
Okay. So I'll tell you what. First of all, you should allow me to slightly disagree with your, assessment. uh, I think so. What IITs have done successfully is to sort of get a certain quality of pool of people in through their entrance exam and so on. I'm not getting into the negatives of that selection process. We all know what's happening in quota and so on forth. But I'm saying the outcome has been over the last, since IT started 50, 60 years ago. I think clearly they have been successful in doing this to get a pool of
Totally.
people, good quality pool of people. Now, once and they're then taken
And
through.
good quality to global standards, very
That's
clearly.
right.
There's no
Very
doubt about it.
That's
Yeah.
right. And then these people are then put through, 4 or 5 years of education, which is not up till now engineering. Actually, these guys are taught engineering sciences. So they are taught the concepts behind the engineering, and that's why I would call them engineering sciences rather than engineering, pure engineering. So, for example, in chemical engineering, which I learned, I of course did my industrial training and so on and so forth. But the focus was more on the concepts behind why things are happening, and why things are not happening. Uh, and there would be lab work, there would be training programs, and so on and so forth, which are more application oriented, project work, etc. But I think in the 4 year period, the focus surely was more on the concepts rather than application of it. Now, what happened is now if you put a intelligent group of people together and they learn from each other as well, uh, the good things and the bad things outside the class, inside the class, and so on. Uh, uh, and you put them through a program on engineering sciences, which is basically concept clearing and so on. They become even more intelligent in terms of figuring out what works, what does not work, and applying that not just to, for example, I learned chemical engineering, but I was able to apply those concepts to anything, right? The same concept would apply to a lot of things outside chemical engineering, and I think these guys, these boys and girls start doing that. Uh, Typically, in my time, and now I will tell both. In my time, the 3 or 4 routes for an IT graduate were these. One was most people would actually take up scholarships and go abroad to study their postgrad, which was basically doing an MS program. Right? A typical destination would be the US at that point in time, even now, even so. And therefore, a lot of these people in a batch of, I'm just saying, putting a number, maybe a third of the batch would actually go to US to study further in their technical sciences. So a BTech in some engineering would end up doing an MS in that same engineering discipline abroad, and therefore that sort of got cemented in terms of staying an engineer, if you would like to call it. So one third of the batch actually stayed an engineer, but moved abroad, and from MS they would then end up doing a PhD, and from there their life would take on. Either they would end up in engineering companies, or they would start on their own, or they would become professors of engineering sciences in some university. So that's what the typical route of people who left the shores of the country at that point in time. About a third of the batch would end up doing an MBA from one of the top institutes in the country, like in IIMs or XLRI and so on and so forth, which is what I took, the route I took. And even the people who then ended going to IIMs from IITs, you know, uh, IIMs even further sort of cemented the fact that you're putting too many intelligent people together. And again, inside the classroom learning, outside the classroom learning, good things, bad things, all happen. But mostly, the people who went on from IIMs would end up doing management jobs, not pure engineering jobs. So that was a third of the batch. Then a third of the batch, I would split them into two. So let's say one third by two is one sixth. So one sixth of the batch would actually end up joining the PSUs of the country, like the SAIL or the BHEL or IOCL and BPCL and HPCL, and this would be about a sixth of the batch, uh, where they would actually end up doing engineering jobs, but in India, hardcore engineering jobs in India.
And some of them also end up doing administrative service and
Yeah,
get
I'll come to that.
into IRS, IAS, and all.
I'll come to that. That's right. So, and the balance one sixth of the batch would directly apply for the civil services, become IS officers, IPS officers, and so on and so forth. And even the people who joined the PSUs would actually, maybe a few of them would actually end up doing the civil services later on, after doing a couple of years of jobs in the PSUs. So this is how the split was. Startup was not a big scene then, 25 years ago. Very few, it was an exception. Very few people actually started out on their own at that point in time. But today the scene is very, very different. In fact, today as we speak, majority of the people are actually getting into startups or starting their own. So it's about a
You're saying majority?
majority. Half of the IITians are actually starting out on their own or joining some startups, started by some of their seniors or whatever it is, right? So they are actually then getting into, and most of them are getting into technical roles over there. If they're starting their own, of course, it's a business role, but technology plays a very, very important part in that, system. But even if they're starting if they're joining some other startup, they would actually join in a technical role, as a product development, or, hardcore product management or something like that, right? Using the latest technologies, AI or blockchain or whatever it is, right? So a lot of today, as we speak, one is a startup, and second is in that space, a lot of tech roles are being taken up by the IITians of today. Half of them. The other half, I think the ratio is still the same as is on my time. So basically, the throughput into going abroad to do an MS, or going to do an MBA, or going to the PSUs, or going to the civil services basically has halved, and that 50% of space has been taken up by startups. So, and that's why I want to sort of, I slightly disagreed with your assessment that IITians produce the least number of engineers. Actually, they produce the most number of engineers. And, if you look at 25 years ago and 25 years later, that is today, uh, uh, the number of engineering leaders uh, and when I say engineering leaders, mean leaders of companies which are primarily engineering, right, engineering focused, are actually IITians, or if I can even extend that, being Indians, and that's true globally. That's true globally. If you look at, and I don't have to really list out the names, but globally, a lot of tech companies are headed by Indians and IITians. Uh, Not only the top leader, but even the next level of leadership are generally IITians or Indians. If you come back to India and look at the leadership here, even in the PSUs or even in the civil services where a lot of tech understanding is required, you know, or if you look at, large conglomerates, there is a lot of presence of IITians in India as well. Uh, you know, if you were to be the chairman of UIDAI, you have to understand the tech behind it, and that person happens to be my batchmate from IIT Kanpur. So I'm just giving some very data based uh, facts, which basically say that I think IITs have done a good job. One is to get a good set of people together, uh, and then put them through a program which sort of not only teaches them engineering, but how to use that engineering science into almost all facets of life. And today everything is tech, Nanju. You know that you yourself are party to that crime. Uh, so uh, so I think a lot of it is driven by people from IITs. I'm not demeaning other engineers from other institutes. They're as well good, but I'm saying the presence of IITians is pretty much almost everywhere globally.
Well, I must say you defended it extremely well. Uh, uh, but yeah, it's just that you just find most IITs. I mean, that I've come across, most of them have been in business functions or otherwise, but not really contributing to the engineering that India desperately needs, right? I mean, that's one
Mm.
area apart from the fact that we had a successful Chandrayaan, all those things,
Yeah,
but we still can do with more good engineers
yeah,
contributing to
yeah,
India, but
yeah,
which I guess that was the vision of setting up IITs, which
yeah, yeah,
obviously is
yeah.
not delivering to that dream or expectation.
Okay, I think we can let that be.
We
But
can continue with
uh, you know,
Tata journey,
uh,
please.
so anyway, so good. So in the Tata Group, the first half of my career was in business roles in consumer companies of the group. So I actually got business for the company, so to say. My first job was, very interesting. So Tata Tea at that point in time, it is now called Tata Consumer Products, had bought Tetley in the UK in the year 2000. It was a leveraged buyout. Tata Tea was one third the size of Tetley, and but in spite of that, it was a David versus Goliath kind of a story at that point in time in the corporate world. It was a one first major uh, international acquisition by the Tata Group, and I had just joined the Tata Group, and I was given the task of launching the Tetley brand in India. So in 2001, uh, almost fresh out of college, very green behind my ears, I was given the task of launching the brand in India, which we did. Of course, I was a deputy manager by designation, but I worked very closely with the vice chairman of the company at that point in time. Another task guy, 1963 batch. He passed away last year. But anyway, so that was a good learning. A lot of uh, very very high pressure job. You we had to make it a success, and we were also launching a premium blend of tea bags, flavored tea bags, which was at that point in time not really known as much as a category in India. So we were not only launching a brand, we were also getting into a new category of tea. Very nice experience. From there, by design, I moved into sales. From marketing, I was to start off with, I was the area sales manager for Madhya Pradesh, and I remember we had five guys, my sales officers. and we were doing a certain level of sale at that point in time. I said, okay, how do we sort of increase this to not just incrementally, but in a quantum way. So I remember sitting in my office here in Kalaghoda in Bombay with my five sales officers. I called them over for a meeting from the markets, and we took a huge, map of MP by the district, and then we mapped out with a pencil, that where is a tea present today. So we figured out that out of almost 55,000 villages in the state, we were only present in 700. And I said, okay, 700, we don't have to be present in 55,000 villages because it may be very costly to go there. But let's make 700,000. 700, let's increase the presence of our brand to 1,000 villages. That's all we will do. And then we, again, with the pencil, we took out, okay, this distributor can cover this van route, or we can do some hat activity, market level activity over there, or something. Some van routes were made out, and we hired some local salesmen to sell our products, and so on and so forth. And over a period of few months, we just focus on distribution. We did not focus on sales. I would never ask my sales guys, uh, have you met your sales targets of this month? I would only ask them, have you increased our width of distribution as planned? Has your 700 villages, or maybe 100 villages by a sales officer, has that increased to 125? Has that increased to 150? What support do you want from there? To be able to do that, we just, like mad, we focused on only distribution increase. And brand was anyway there. We focused on brand activation as well on the local level. Uh, and in a few months, our sales went up by 50%. And that's surely a quantum jump, right? Without focusing on sales, we actually sold 50% more. Uh, if we continued to focus on sales, we would have maybe sold 5-10% more. But we focused, I think, on the right thing to do. And so we focused on the lead factor, and the sales was just a lag factor. Uh, so I think we did pretty well, and the sales team motivation was very high. And because of, for a sales guy, if you sell well, he's anyway motivated, right? So that's what happened. And then company saw that, and they made me the regional sales manager for West, overseeing Bombay, Maharashtra, MP, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat. And I must say that I was the youngest regional sales manager for the company. I was in my late 20s. The other three regional sales managers were in their late 40s or early 50s. So there was a generation difference between me and the other three regional sales managers. Also, the West market was, uh, in the company's ecosystem, the toughest market actually, because the market here is very much fragmented. Local players rule the roost. In Nasik, there is Sapat. In Gujarat, there is Girnar and Waghbakri. And in Bombay, there is Society, and so on and so forth. And MP and Chhattisgarh is plethora of, some hundreds of local brands. But in that very, very fragmented market, we increased our, sales, and we again focused on the right things. Uh, so that was my stint in Tata Consumer Products. 6 years, yes.
Well, there must have been a lot of conflict with the generation gap, right? And probably your own team members were older to you.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So, so was there some guardian angel in the company who was helping you through that, or was it all trial and error for you?
So there was no, I mean, I won't say there was a guardian angel in that sense, but I think because I had proved myself, I was there as an RSM on merit. I had proved myself with the Tetley launch, and I had proved myself as an area sales manager from Madhya Pradesh, and the results were there for all to see. So I don't think, and I could not, I did not feel any kind of a gap with the other three RSMs, because anyway, the four different regions operated independently of each other. I really didn't need anything from the other regions. Of course, there would be some infiltration of products from here and there, like Jharkhand products would come into Chhattisgarh, and I had to speak to the RSM of East to help me tackle that issue. but that was very minor in the whole scheme of things. Uh, I did not really feel that generation with my peers as RSMs. Even in my team, people who were reporting into me and who were technically older to me by age, I think they had seen me working with them, and I was. I mean, I must say that I was a very empowering leader manager. So I would just ask them what's the plan for the month, what support do they need, and then let them do it. Of course, I would have a eye on what they're doing on a reasonably regular basis, uh, but I think they were pretty much empowered to do what they wanted to do. Uh, uh, I really did not see any friction as much from a guardian angel point of view. No, I was just treated as anyone
There's no
would be.
need for any of it.
Yeah, I think that's true everywhere. I mean, if you are somewhere in a place because of your merit, proven merit, and people know about that, I think they respect you for that. Human beings, people will be jealous, competitive, all that stuff. But then, in this context, I mean, we did not compete with other regions, right? In one sense, we are only adding to the company's sales. Uh, so, uh, uh, so that way there was no competition within my team who were reporting into me. Uh, I was not competing with them, so there was no, in that sense, there was no competition. So that was that. Uh, Anyway, so Nanju, from Tata Consumer Products, I moved to another consumer company called Titan. I was head of North, the traditional North, starting with NCR, Delhi NCR. Yes.
You opted to that role, or why did that change happen?
Yeah. So actually, what happened is, you know, my working style is, I don't know, it's good or bad, but what I do is I structure my day, and then so I have a to do list for the day, and this falls into the umbrella of what I want to do at a larger level, of course. But then I work the day based on a to do list, and after having spent 6 years in the company, things were becoming very easy for me in terms of uh, doing things. Uh, I knew the processes, I knew the people, I knew how to do the things, I knew how to get the sales, I knew the pressure points of people, what would make them perform, and so on and so forth. So basically, I would end up finishing my work of the day actually in 1 hour. So I would reach. I mean, besides of course market working days where I would be in the market, I would spend the whole day. But the days when I was in office, I would actually I ended up wondering what should I do after the first hour of the day. I had so much free time and I would say boredom, and so on and so forth. And so basically, I got bored with my job. Uh, and then I thought, let me use the facility that TAS provides of moving around the group. And that's the reason I joined Tata Administrative Service and not Tata Consumer Products from the campus, right? So I reached out to the group. I reached out to some leaders I knew through my network, and I landed a job with Titan uh, as regional head for North. So very different geography from West, very different product from tea. I started selling watches and jewelry and prescription eyewear and so on and so forth. What company was selling, and also multi-channel. Tata Tea was basically sold through distributors, but Titan as a category, Titan watches as a category, had multi-channel. So we had our own exclusive showrooms, World of Titan showrooms, and so on and so forth. We also had the distributor channel, and we also had the direct dealer channel. So it was a very different. I mean, it was tangentially connected because it is a consumer space, but category was different. The landscape was different. The geography was different. The culture was different. West India culture is very different from North India culture in terms of performance orientation, in terms of telling things as it is, and so on and so forth. And interestingly, I was again, it was very interesting and challenging role because the the RSM, the regional head before me in Titan in North, had got into some personal issues, uh, and I mean, I should not say what kind of personal issues, but let that be. But the company was looking for a change of leadership in that region. And it so happened that I reached out at the same time, and I got slotted into the role. And my job was primarily to literally turn the ship around in terms of not so much in terms of sales, but more in terms of culture. Uh, so people across the system, uh, discipline.
Well, was it organic for somebody coming from uh, consumer business to lifestyle consumer business in Tata's, or is it the task that actually facilitated?
I think being a task officer helped me in that pitch, but Titan as a company would have evaluated other people as well, and I know that they did. Uh, but as I said, one was a network, the leadership that I connected with, and they knew me. They knew my work in Tata Consumer Products. They in fact took a reference from the managing director of the company at that point in time, and the managing director of Tata Consumer Products at that point in time supported my move. He said, "Yeah, he's a good chap. I'm sorry to lose him in Tata Consumer Products, but I'll be happy that he remains in the group and he's of use to you." So he supported my move and he gave me a very good reference. And so being a task officer helped, but that was not the only criteria. I think what I did in Tata T, my reputation, as they call it, uh, was more important than me being a task officer. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, so I moved with that, and so the job, as I said, was more on the people front than on the sales front. Putting a discipline in place in terms of, so there was to be all kinds of indiscipline over there in terms of people not coming on time or not going to the market on time, calling it early. Money was moving around without any proper documentation. You know what I'm trying to say, but basically it was a indisciplined mess. We were
Right.
getting the sales, but uh, but I think my task was really to sort this out internally, which I did over a period of 2 years. From so while I was there, we did some good sales as well. But I think we sorted the discipline issues in the team over there, and then the company only had looked forward to move forward from there. Anyway, by then I think I had gone a little senior, so I had spent about you know something like a decade in the group doing business roles, and I grew a little senior. I got kicked upstairs, so I joined Tata Suns, which is the parent company of the group. And this was more. I think your question would be, how did I move? Why did I move? Kind of stuff. I think it was more that I had done almost a decade of business roles, and now uh, the group somehow felt, and I also felt, that I need to now move into more corporate kind of roles. Not just pure sales and marketing kind of roles. So I moved into more corporate roles. In Tata Sons, I worked uh, pretty much closely with the group chairman's office. Initially, Ratan Tata, then even Cyrus Mistry. And I worked at a global level, so that gave me a global perspective. I did, of course, a lot of work in India, but a lot of work in Southeast Asia, a lot of work in the US for Tata companies. Uh, I worked on primarily two subjects: one on innovation, and second on consumer sensitivity. So my remit was to increase innovation quotient and then later on consumer sensitivity in the group at large globally. So with that, a lot of I would have worked with some 50 Tata companies in that 6 year period I was with Tata Sons. And my engagements with the Tata companies were mostly at the MD level, board level, CXO level, because my job was to influence them, uh, and they were not reporting to me, right? So the board of the company or the MD of the company or the CXOs of the company have their own reporting system. I was just coming in as a external catalyst on the subjects of innovation and consumer
So
centricity.
how would you get measured? Your role or your performance? How was that getting
Yeah,
measured?
yeah. So it's basically consumer feedback. So we do some engagement with a Tata company. It could be an assessment, it could be some action planning, it could be some consulting work, it could be some training work. So basically those kind of engagements, and then we would have some consumer feedback, right? I mean, formally, informally, whatever it is, and that would flow back very, very fast. I make a presentation to a board of a company, and when I get back, before I get back, the feedback on my presentation would reach my boss. So
And
that
your boss would be what? The chairman or chairman's office?
no,
Somebody
no.
else?
So we had a layer. Later on, I became senior in the chairman's office as well. I in fact became the general manager, but I started out as a senior manager. So I reported into a vice president who would report into the chairman's office. So that's how it was. So basically, Tata Sons. So one is Tata Sons has shareholding in Tata companies, and the senior people in Tata Sons are on the board of different Tata companies, right? So one is financial leverage, second is management leverage is there. But those guys will not do the actual work with the
Correct.
companies. So it will be people like me who would actually end up working with the companies to drive certain initiatives of the group. And so it is actually like a quasi consulting firm. Like a company would hire one of the MBBs like McKinsey or BCG or whatever, we would also put in our ring in the fray. And let's say a company wants to increase its innovation funnel, they would call out for some consultants, and we would be one of them. And actually, we would quote commercially for an engagement. So it was not free. It was not free engagements. So Tata companies would pay Tata Sons for the services of people like mine. So it was a commercial arrangement, and therefore the
And
moment it is
how often would you get rejected? I'm just curious. Your
so,
application or your pitch.
uh, how often would we get rejected? So unless there is a very so how it worked is if it was a group initiative, uh, you know, the group chairman's office has formally articulated certain group initiatives, then we would actually get the contract. Also, we would not charge as much as a McKinsey or a BCG, right? So from a
Okay.
cost, from a price point of view, also we would be much cheaper than them, and then there would be a trust factor. They can share their
Right.
data
But
with us.
obviously, engaging you was not dependent on how much you quoted, right? It would be other things.
Yes, yes. But if it was a company initiative, not driven by the group, but individual company is driving a certain initiative, then it would be a free for all in one sense, and there our rejection rates were higher, which I think is so. Our job was not to make money as a consultant to a Tata company. Our basic job was to drive group initiatives in Tata companies, but we wanted a commercial arrangement. Otherwise, there is no value in it on the table, both sides, right? Company will not see value in it if it is free, and we will also not do a
Correct.
good job because it is free, right? So that doesn't work. So we made a commercial arrangement, but that is not the main objective. The main objective is to drive group initiatives, and I
Right.
think with that, I think it served its purpose in that sense. So as I said, I engaged with some 50 companies across a 6-year period. Uh, Very, very good experience. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, how much of the leadership, as in the chairman's office, or Mr. Tata or Mr. Mistry, how much of a difference those people made in your engagement with these business heads or the MDs of these group companies?
So very different personalities. I worked only these two chairmen. I had left the group by the time Cyrus Mistry was asked out and the current chairman was in place. So I had left the group by then. But anyway, very different personalities between Ratan Tata and Cyrus Mistry. Ratan Tata, I must say, is a rock star. So if he enters a room, you will notice, and all the eyes would be on him. But he'll speak very less. He will make a few suggestions, and then those become the gospel truth. And then people have to find a way to deliver what he just said, or supposedly suggested. So it was a very, I would say, a hands-off kind of an approach by Ratan Tata as a personality. He
He
would
had
not.
kind of become a demigod, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
By then.
So he will just suggest. He'll just say a few words. He will suggest, and then people get the message and said, okay, now this has to be done, and somehow, and then people will find the way to do it. Uh, uh, and Cyrus Mistry, on the other hand, was extremely hands-on. He would come into a meeting room with his sleeves folded up, as if he's an engineer, civil engineer actually. And he would be a little sweaty as well. So as if he has actually done some manual work before coming into the meeting. And but very sharp, very hands-on. uh, you make a presentation to Ratan Tata, he would hardly ask you anything. If he asks you 1 point or 2 points here and there, then you're lucky, and that's it. But you try making a presentation to Cyrus Mistry, he would keep interjecting, interrupting, asking
So
you
he would make you
clarification.
sweat.
Yeah, he will keep asking, what is this, what is that, why is that, etc., etc. So very engaging personality, very hands-on personality, very different from Ratan Tata. And the other thing is, so of course there would be some follow-up meetings with them. So you make a follow-up presentation to Ratan Tata, he would look at that presentation as if it is a new subject to him. Like, he would not link it back to the previous presentation on the same subject. Uh, Cyrus Mistry was very different. He would remember what you had presented in the last meeting, which may be even, few months or sometimes a year old. So that was that. Very different personalities. Not to say
Or
that which is
that
good or
Ratan
bad.
Tata was already kind of switched off from the business in that sense.
No, 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 no. He was not switched off, but that was his style. I think he had done his hands-on work in 90s, and when I engaged with him, it was already 2015, 2015 onwards, right? So 2010. So we are. I mean, he's now in his 80s. So I had engaged with him when he was in his 70s. So even from an age point of view, from his engaging point of view, we engage at a different time, not for his or my good luck or bad luck, but that's how it happened. Sajid Mistry was still in his 40s when I engaged with him. So in a 40s, you will be a different person, right? And he had just become the chairman. So in that sense, his requirement to be engaged was also very high. Ratan Tata didn't need to be engaged. Not that he was not engaged. He may be engaging with different level of people.
But how did the leadership team that you dealt with in the group companies
Hmm.
uh, find this change of leadership? Uh,
I think it was good, Frank. I mean, whatever happened with Cyrus Mistry is done and dusted with. But I think Cyrus Mistry was a very good leader. He engaged, he connected with people very well, and he got into the skin of the business. People were very comfortable with him. It was he was a chairman who was like your immediate boss, even though he was 10,000 levels above you, right? You could tell him your business issues. He would, you know, try and support you. He would also support you as a professional, as an individual professional. So if you were looking to get into a role, you could actually go up and tell him, as a chairman of the group, he could actually go and tell Sagar Mistry, I'm looking to get into this kind of role. Can you help me with this? Which was impossible with Ratan Tata, right? You could not do that. But very different age groups, right? I mean, we are talking of a guy in 40s and another guy in 70s. And they had seen different, they were at different times of their careers as chairman. So not to take away anything from anyone, but I think Cyrus Mistry chairmanship was actually good for the group. I really do not know what happened, but I think it was good for the group. Even the current
And
chairman is very good.
what was that the kind of feeling across the leadership of different
Yes,
group companies as well?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. People were very comfortable with him to tell them their business issues, their even personal issues, and so on and so forth. He was so approachable, and he had a good memory. So I mean, you do something well, and you inform him on mail. You could do that. You could not do that to Ratan Tata. You can't inform Ratan Tata as a group chairman that you have done something and you have done it well. But you could write a mail to Cyrus Mistry, and Ratan Tata would not respond to your mail even if you write to him. His office would, but Cyrus Mistry would write directly himself personally in the middle of the night. Good job, Powers, or whatever it is. I have a mail from him at 3 o'clock in the morning. Uh, you
Wow.
know that good job. I missed the engagement, but I heard that it was a very good job. So
Well, Pawas, I mean, I don't know whether you could answer this, but it's odd that where everybody could stay so connected with somebody, and when some issue blows up and nobody put their neck out to stand by, I mean, it seems very odd, right? I mean, of course, you are not there, so you can't really answer for
hmm, hmm.
yourself on that. But did this thought come to you that
Yeah, this thought came to me. So when this happened, it happened overnight, right? I mean, not even overnight. In one meeting, it happened, and the news. It was all in the news channels and stuff like that. And I was in Tata AIA life at that point in time, and I just happened to run into my boss in Tata AIA, the MD of the company, and I just remarked to him that why are people not saying anything? He just smiled and said, people have to have their jobs as well. So that was that.
seriously?
Yeah. So nobody. I mean, the chairman of the group has been sacked by the chairman emeritus of the group, kind of thing, by the board of the group. What do you do as what? I mean, do you revolt, or do you? What do you do? You can't do anything, right? It's not in your pay grade. And of the board members, Tata Sons board members, I know that a few of them, I think just one or two of them, actually did not vote for his ouster. So they were
Correct,
formal about it,
correct, yeah.
but others did. Uh, Others just towed the line. So that's how life is, Nanju. In Mahabharata, and you talked about stories and so on. So in Mahabharata, when Karna was at the receiving end on the battlefield, uh, and he was trying to save his life, nobody came to protect him, right? No, and his whole life, he had only given, stuff. So in spite of that, nobody was there for him on the battlefield when he was fighting for his life. So we have stories in our mythology alluding to the same thing.
All right. I mean, just curious. Did you feel somewhere let down from what the Tata Group meant for you after this
Yes,
episode?
yes, yes. Personally, in my heart, I felt a little let down. I said, "What? How can this happen in a group like Tata's?" I had spent almost 2 decades in the group. I joined the group because of its value systems, uh, primarily, and if a group can sack its own chairman, then there is no.
And not for merit reasons, right? Obviously,
No,
not for
yeah, it was
that.
not. Surely it was not merit. I mean, come on, it was not merit. So I mean, if the chairman of a group can be sacked just like that, uh, then what are we? I mean, there's no sanctity to employer-employee so-called relationship, right? It's just momentary. It's just uh, convenience. I really felt like that.
Right. Okay. Please do continue. I mean, this was something I thought we should ask, so please do
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. Anyway, so from Tata Sons, again as a planned career move, I moved into Tata AIA Life Insurance. So I joined as a chief risk officer and on the board committees of Tata AI Life Insurance. Very interesting because a chief risk officer role in a life insurance company is typically held by an actuary. They're qualified actuaries.
Exactly. So how did you do that? I mean,
Yeah. So I wanted from Tata Sons, I was pretty clear that I want to move into the top management of the company, kind of thing. And Tata AI Life on its own side was looking for a business guy to be in this role, not a traditional actuary, a good business guy in this role. So it just sort of kind of matched up. Uh, Good for me because I got into the top management. I was part of the management executive committee of the company. I got into the board committee of the company, reporting directly into the MD and the board committees and so on and so forth. And the company got a business guy in the role because for the last whatever time, I was basically getting business for the company, or I had engaged with the top management of companies while I was at Tata Sons. So that was a good, let me say, experience to bring to the table for Tata A Life. So again, the role.
I'm just curious, were you instrumental in even seeding the thought that perhaps this role needs a business person and that could be?
No, no,
No?
it was
Okay.
it was it was it was Providence. I reached out to a few companies that I want to move out of Tata Sons into an operating company, but in a senior role. So that was that. These were my only, requirements. And when I was engaging a few Tata companies on this front, I think Tata A Life MD basically said that yeah, they're looking for someone like this of this background. So why don't you join up? And it happened very fast. From the time I reached out to the time I got the offer, it was just 3 weeks if I remember. In 2 3 weeks we closed it. So uh, and other companies I was engaging with, I had to actually disengage because I had to tell them that now I'm not available because they were taking their time, rightly so, because getting into a senior role in a company is not it can't happen overnight or even in a few weeks. Sometimes it can take months.
I mean, this is quite amazing, right? One, such a senior role got closed, and two, come with a person who just doesn't come with the right
Yeah,
qualification or
yeah,
experience for it. I
yeah,
mean, this
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
just, it's like a startup, it's not a corporate.
yeah, yeah. So, in fact, the risk function in Tata Life was actually a startup. So, before this, we had a risk officer, but it was not really structured like a team or what it did and so on and so forth. So, I actually, in real sense, set up the risk function in the company, and it was also a regulatory requirement by them. So, one had to have a life insurance company has to have a chief risk officer who is part of certain committees. They have to have a risk management framework, the team, various things like that. So we did all those things. Uh, but I think we also worked on something called risk culture for the company, which was not mandated by the regulator. What was mandated by the regulator, of course, we did. But we went beyond that mandate and said, listen, just see, a chief risk officer role is an influence role. It's not it's by design it's a low resource department as they call it, LRD. So I just had half a dozen people reporting into me, that's it. And company was some 6 7,000 people. I was part of the management executive committee, because of which I did have a say in what the company was doing, and it was reviewing and so on and so forth. Every week we used to have a meeting like this. But formally, most of the company was not reporting to me, right? But uh, so I said, listen, we can't manage risk by sitting in an AC room in Bombay and just half a dozen of us. What is happening on the field, we will not have any leverage over there. So how do we? One is the process part of it. We of course put a lot of process, etc., around being risk robust processes. But process is process. If culturally people don't align to something, process can be broken. So then we set out to work on instilling a risk management culture in the company. We did branding of risk function. It was unheard of in the industry, even today, I guess. So people will look up to risk as something negative. Oh, risk function, risk officer, he's coming to stop what I'm doing. Uh, so that was the general sense, and across the industry. By the way, Nanju, it's not just in Tata AIA, but across the industry, risk people, risk functions are seen as like that, as if they are going to put a spoke in your plans. I said, no, risk is not that. Risk is to help you achieve your strategic goals. It is so I flipped the coin. I said, no, risk is not something a block. It is an enabler for you to be able to meet your strategic goals, and we will do that. But I also said risk is not equal to risk management team. You have to manage your own risk. We will help you with that. We will put process in place. We'll put policies in place. We will train you. But we also branded in a very interesting way. We said risk is good. That was a brand. Uh,
What typically most insurance businesses in India, like Tata AIA, also it was a joint venture, right? You had
yeah, that's
a
right.
multinational. So I
Yeah.
thought all these things would typically come from them, right?
So
The process.
a lot of content. You're right. So a lot of content we did get from AIA, and we used to have pretty much regular meetings online as well as face to face in India, Thailand, Hong Kong, and so on and so forth on risk content. So they would give us the concepts on risk management framework, tolerance limits, things like that, and we
Oh,
would.
but the onus of localizing it is one was on
That's right.
you.
That's right.
Mm.
That's right. So we did that, and we did it pretty well over a period of 2 years. In fact, we got the Golden Peacock Award for risk management, given by Institute of Directors. Over there. So that was that, Nanju. In fact, with that, I
I'm
ended my
just curious. How do you rate your success in this? Because this is the shortest stint, right, for you in the Tata Group.
two
Uh,
years. 2 years.
yeah, I mean, otherwise you spent 5 years, and
That's right. So I would say it was pretty
or
good. I
were you
mean,
bored or was it stressful? What was it that you just moved out of?
I'll tell you what happened when I wanted to move out of the group is one was this Sajas Mystery incident happened. Uh,
Ah, right. Okay.
One. Second is uh, I asked myself, where do I go from here? I was, I think, 42 at that point in time. And so a couple of things happened, Nanju. One, not in any order, but I think they all came together. One, as I said, Saras Mystery incident. Second was I was 42. I said, where do I go from here? As a chief risk officer of a company, what do I do next? And that was not becoming very clear to me because anyway, group was in a disarray in from a leadership point of view because of the chairman change and so on and so forth. People were very busy with that. They didn't have bandwidth to listen to these kind of issues of individual people. And also, there was a uh, inflection point in my personal life at that point in time. So I think all this put together, I said, let me explore out, let me go out, uh, and I actually joined academia from there. Uh, so I was the chief operating officer at Vibgya Group of Schools.
You could have gone to any corporate. Why
Hmm.
academia? So,
So initially, my objective was to start off my own. I thought I'm 42. I have done 18 years on this side. Even if I were to put a retirement age of 60, which I don't want to retire, but let's put a number. I have 18 years on that side. I said, I'm bang in the middle of my career. Let me start something now. And, if not now, then when? So I actually started out like that. And I actually was not looking for a job, but these two roles came my way. And I said, okay, I like academia as well. Let me give it a shot for some more time. So, and they were no, actually they were normal corporate jobs. I mean, they were from a role point of view, they were pretty large roles. From a money point of view, they were paying as much as a corporate would. So they were corporate roles in one sense. It just happened that they were in academia. So So I was the chief operating officer at Vibgyor Group of Schools, and then I've also been the pro vice chancellor and on the board of Narsee Monjee University. Both these roles were very large. In Vibgyor, some 40 schools, 55,000 students across boards, CBSE, ICSE, Cambridge, 13 cities, 7 states. So that was that, and almost all non-academic functions reported into me as a chief operating officer. So right from sales, service, marketing, operations, admin, transport, canteens, you name it. Uh, so it was that. In Narsee Monjee, again very similar, as a pro vice chancellor for non-academics, 9 campuses in India, 30 colleges under the university system, 750 almost PhDs as faculty members, 90,000 students, right from graduation to postdoc.
Uh, were you with your when that episode
No,
happened
no,
in
that
Bangalore?
happened much,
Okay.
much earlier. I had checked out on that, but yeah, but that happened much, much earlier than when I joined. So that was that, Nanju. Very good experience in the academia field also. In fact, I do, even as we speak, I do a lot of consulting work in that space, in the academia space. People reach out to me because of my experience, and I said, connect the dots, right? That's how dots connect. Maybe that experience, you know, continues to draw some people to me to for me to consult to them on K-12 and higher education, so on and so forth.
Well, Pawas, you consistently transition from a different line of business to a different function, different level of responsibilities, and also different impact from a role point of view.
Hmm.
So, how did you approach your own transition? If you, I mean, you're such an organized man. If you have put together some one, two, three, four things, probably some of our listeners or audience can find it very useful, or perhaps it could be a tool for them.
So, I in fact I have actually thought through this, not for your question, but I have thought through this for myself. That you know, like everyone, I've had my ups and downs in careers, right? So, what I just told you is all the nice things, but there have also been bad things. Uh, so I actually sat down one day and actually listed out on a paper what are the things that were critical for me to be successful at a certain point in time professionally. I think I came up with 5 things. All right. Uh, some of them are very, very, what do you say, uh, practical, and some of them are philosophical, but that's how it is. Uh, the first thing that came up on my list from a practical point of view is that I always, whenever I have been successful in my roles, I've always had a larger picture in mind. So there has been a strategic, larger picture where I have alluded to in all my successful roles, even as banal as trying to get a monthly sales target done. But I've had a larger picture in my mind that why are we doing that? So I think that whenever I've had that in my mind, I have been successful. So that's one. Second is my daily to do list. I, I'm a maniacal believer in my to do list, and I'll show you for like this is my diary, and it has got to do list for every day for the last I don't know 10, 15 years now. Uh, but to be able to achieve my larger picture, I break it down on a daily basis. So to achieve my larger picture, what do I have to do today? And it could be very, very simple things because on a daily basis you can only do simple things. But I put that down, and it that list has even my personal stuff like going for a morning walk or doing yoga and things like that, or calling someone on a birthday. So it's all there, uh, right from my personal stuff to professional stuff. What I have to do every day is written there, and I have prioritized it also on a daily basis. So today I have this long list, maybe 10 things or 12 things, but out of those 12 things, these 6 things are must do's, and uh, I had to prioritize them because time is limited, right, for everyone. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the other six, I'll do it at towards the end of the day when I have done these first six, kind of thing. So whenever I have been successful, I have followed this. Whenever I have departed from this route, uh, my feet has faltered, kind of thing. That's the second bit. So first is larger picture. Second is a daily to do list. Third is boss management. Whenever I have been able to manage my boss well, I have been successful. And whenever I have had issues with my boss, I have not been successful. And I think it's true for everyone. But here, boss doesn't mean your formal direct boss only. For example, now I'm an entrepreneur, right? I don't have a boss. But who's my boss? My boss is my client. So you can expand the definition of who's your boss, but I think you have to manage a few key relationships in your workplace to be successful. Whenever I have been successful, I when I look back, I have done that well. Whenever I have had some relationship issues with key people, I have not done well. So this is the third thing I came up with. So these are three very practical things to do, uh, at least for me. Uh, the other two are very philosophical, and the two philosophical things are, one is gratitude. Uh, you know, whenever I have felt a lot of gratitude for what I'm achieving, what I'm doing, what I'm contributing, what I'm adding value to, I have been successful. Whenever I have, for whatever reason, stopped being grateful, I have not been successful. I don't know, but it works like magic. But and and I use the word magic, and that is my fifth point. Whenever I have believed that I'm creating magic or there is magic in my life, I have been successful. And whenever I have stopped for whatever reason, lethargy or bad patch in my life or whatever it is, that I have stopped believing that there is magic in my life, magic has stopped in being in my life actually. So I came up with these five things, Nanju. You asked about these five things, and so I came up with this list of five things. These five things will differ for different people, but this is my list. And now I'm very what do you say, cunning, because now by design I I ensure that I do these five things anyway. Uh, Now that I know it, and this comes with experience, of course, right? You can't do it 25 years ago because you don't know. But with 25 years of experience in life, one can come up with some list and then by design follow that list. So now by design, I ensure that I do these five things, and thankfully, I have been successful as we speak.
Wonderful. Uh, Pawas, what does leadership mean to you? Because uh, I think let's get it from you. Let me not try to put it in any other way. Let's
Hmm.
get it from you.
So leadership, in my opinion, Nanju, and it's not a textbook answer that I want to give. Uh, so leadership is that people, your team and your extended team, look up to you uh, for something, and then you are a leader, right? And it's not about formal leadership. Most leadership is actually informal, and it starts in the school. I mean, it starts in on the playground in the school. Uh, uh, it starts from there. So if your classmates, if your friends look up to you on the playground for things, for organizing something or for some toy or whatever it is, right? That's leadership. Then it moves on to college, and same thing happens in the classroom. If your friends in the classroom or outside the classroom look up to you for something, either you help them understand some academic concepts or you help them with something. If I go to Nanju or Powers, he will surely give this to me, not necessarily material stuff, but some guidance or some advice or some view or whatever it is. Then that's leadership. And the same thing moves to in a corporate world, in the corporate life, in a professional world, is if your colleagues, if your team members, if your boss looks up to you for something, then that's leadership. I think that's the primary thing. Of course, from a more manifestation point of view, leadership is you let your team, you basically become a coach rather than a leader. You help the team figure out what they should be doing, how should they be doing. You support them, you empower them, and let them do, and reward them and motivate them. But I would actually go back to the first point which I made, is about people looking up to you. If you're a person whom people look up to you, reach out to you beyond the norms of formality, then you're a leader. I mean, that's a clear marker.
Right. Uh, how do you differentiate coaching, mentoring, and advising?
Good, interesting. So this is what I do now anyway, to make a living. But so advising, I think, is more to solve a problem or address an opportunity here and now, and it's generally a business problem or a business opportunity, right? I'm talking in the professional sense. You could also advise people at a personal level, but I'm not talking about that part. That is more coaching and mentoring, I would say. I would push that into the bucket of coaching and mentoring. But advising is more, let me say, to solve a business problem or a business opportunity, right? So that's where you bring in your perspective, your experience, your best practices from outside that company, and help that company solve that problem or address that opportunity. So that's advising, consulting, basically, right? Mentoring and coaching is a very thin line. So coaching is, I would say, someone who works with the person. If you look at the sportsman coach, if you take sportsmanship, and in the sports arena, there are sports coaches. They work with the sportsman or the sportswoman to work with them on improving their game, and they work holistically, not just functionally. So if there's a cricket coach or a swimming coach or whatever it is, that person is of course coaching that person on swimming or cricket or whatever it is, but also working with that person's mind, to remove any mental obstacles that may person may have towards performing. So it is more in step. The coach is more in step, more hands-on, more with you, kind of an approach, uh, right? It's more high touch. Mentoring is a little more, I would say, top down. So when you mentor, you are engaging with that person or a mentee, from a different pedestal, from a generally a higher pedestal. Of course, there is now a concept of reverse mentoring in companies, but I'm not talking about that. In normal sense, mentoring is from a senior to a junior. And while the mentor does something similar to what a coach does, it is a little more hands off. It is a little more irregular. It is a little more top down, in that sense. And I think I would make that difference, between a coaching and a mentoring kind of a format. Uh, Nanju, you have a point of view. I can see that from your face.
No, I just wanted to understand now when you engage professionally. Uh, Sometimes people reach out and say that I'm seeking your advice, right? Do you obviously the business advice? You engage them as an advisor, but from an advisory role, what do you slip into? When do you slip into a mentor role? When do you slip into a coach?
So it really depends on the engagement. Most, uh, in fact, as we speak now, 75% of my business is actually advising. Uh, so most clients that I work with start with advisory services, using my advisory services. They start with that. But once I have advised them on a certain business project, then they want some handholding to implement those recommendations. So in that implementation phase, then I wear the hat of a coach or a mentor depending on how they want it. So anyway, the other thing by design, I don't actively sell my services. I don't go hard sell, I do this and please take my service. I don't do that. But my clients and my potential clients know what I do. They know how to reach me, and then I leave it there. If they have a need, they will reach out to me, and then basis their best interests, I sometimes suggest to them that you should go with this model or that model. uh, I've always seen that that works best more from a long term relationship as well. If I go with something which is high touch, of course, it will cost more money. But if the client actually needs a low touch approach, I would actually rather suggest that to them. Go with less money now for myself, but then the client will see more value in that. And hopefully in future, they will engage me for much more high value engagements. This is my hope. And it has turned out to be like that.
Right. Well, I'd like to talk more on that. I think we will get down to that conversation in your business conversation. So, do you want to talk about people who you think are responsible for the person that you are today?
For sure. I think the first name that comes to my mind is my school principal. Most people would say that it should be your dad or whatever it is, but he's there on the list. You know, but the first name that comes to my mind is my school principal. So, a guy by the name of Dr. J.D. Johnson. He passed away in COVID. Anyway, he was pretty old. He was, I think, almost 79 when he passed away. And I had been in touch with him, since I left school, whatever, 30 years ago. Uh, so he was. So what happened is when I joined school, I was anyway a good student. I was good in extracurricular activities, so I was more like a uh, pretty well-rounded kind of a guy. So I was pretty popular with in the schools, with the teachers, with other students, and so on and so forth. And it so happened that when I moved from ninth to 10th standard, my dad moved to Calcutta on a transfer, and I could not move with him because of the board exams. 10th standard is board exams. So my dad was actually taking it back with him to Calcutta, and he got the admissions for me. But the school principal, JD Johnson, he told my dad that, it's good for Pawas to be here. Let him finish his board exams here, and we will anyway get the benefit of his, academic results. So why take that away from us? So the school had a hostel, and I moved to the hostel in 10th standard. So 10th, 11th, and 12th, I was in the school hostel. So I literally lived in the school. And it so happened the school principal was also the hostel warden. So I spent more and more time with JD Johnson. Uh, and so I did well in 10th standard. And then the time came for me to go to Calcutta after 10th standard, uh, as planned. But then JD Johnson told my dad again, let him be here. I mean, why just 2 years? Just take him away. Let him be here. So my dad agreed, and I continued in the hostel, and I finished my 11th and 12th in the same school hostel, same principal, and so on and so forth. But those 3 years were very, defining for me in my relationship with JD Johnson. And uh, I got literally a free hand to do what I wanted. Of course, I actually wrote a book at that point in time, which the school published. And I got it was because of him I wrote that book. Uh, very, very different kind of a leader. So I just told him one day that I want to write a book. And this was in my 11th standard, towards the end of 11th standard, getting into board exams, 12th standard board exams, and so on. So he said, "Yeah, go ahead." I said, "Okay, I've told my stuff. Let me continue with my life." I may or may not have written the book, by the way. But what happened is this guy announced in the school assembly that Pawas Agarwal is going to write a book. And that became like a social pressure on me. All teachers started asking me, "How's your book going?" I hadn't even started it. So all my friends started asking me, "How's the book going?" and stuff like that. I said, "Oh God, I put my, whatever, head on the chopping block. Now I have to do something about it." So I started waking up at 4 a.m. every day to write the book, maybe, a few pages every morning before the day started. And I finished the book, and it was published by my school. And I also got a congratulatory message from the then Prime Minister, Narasimha Rao. I was in my 12th standard. So I was able to do some crazy stuff because of my school principal. You know, so I think he shaped a lot of my personality as even now. When I look back, the good things that I have are actually because of him. So discipline, persistence, uh, things like that, uh, confidence, even to some extent, some leadership qualities are because of him. Uh, so that was that. One person who truly influenced me a lot. Second person is of course my dad. Always looked up to him throughout life, like every child would. Uh, I have my own son now, 5 years old, and I think he looks up to me as well. He shows off, he shows me off to his friends and so on. So I think that's natural. But I also learned a lot of stuff from my dad. Uh, Creativity, being different. So some very different values that I picked up from my dad. Uh, so these are two permanent people, sure for sure, that whom I learned a lot in my life. But I also learned, from people on a who have gone and come. I mean, who have come and gone in my life, right? Some bosses who have influenced me, but I'm no longer in touch with them. But they did teach me something at that point in time. Uh, Observing people, for example, I'm learning something from you. So there have been people like that throughout my life, from whom I have learned things here and there. But surely my school principal, Dr. JD Johnson, and my dad, Piyush Agarwal, whom I owe a lot of my personality traits to as we speak.
And just this thought came to me. So, do you also play JD Johnson to anybody?
uh I do. So yeah, I know what you're asking. So I you know lot of people get in touch with me across my network, pretty much randomly, for something or the other. Uh, it could be for a connection, it could be for a job, it could be for some advice. Uh, so I actually go out of my way, literally, to give that to that person. But I mean, I have only one condition, that I must know that person. That's all. I don't go out of my way to help unknown people. But I do that. I am exactly the opposite with people whom I know. And I think he also taught me to give back to society. Uh, and, my business today is purely based on my network. I do not sell my services. I do not do extensive marketing. I don't have the money for that. I do some social media posts, and that's it. But almost all of my business is because of my network. And this business has come to me because someone in my network believes in me, maybe looks up to me. Maybe in the past I have done something for them, but I don't, sort of contribute to people's lives in the hope that they will give me something back. I just do it, and then as dots connect, things do come back to you as well. So it's a bank. It's like a pool in which uh, deposit some good karma, and you keep getting some good karma back.
And what keeps Powers busy? What kind of books and podcasts?
So people learn different ways. I'm not too much of a reader. Uh, I do read some books on and off, but I'm not a reader per se, as you call it. I learn in very different ways. I learn right now. I do a lot of learning because of my work engagements. So when a client gives me some subject to work on, I will say yes. I will do it. I don't have to tell no to that person, as long as I am broadly comfortable with the subject. But then while preparing for that work with the client, I do a lot of research. online research, talking to people in the industry, and so on and so forth. And I learn a lot because of that. So that's my primary source of learning right now. I learn, as they call it, on the job. Uh, I mean, I hope my clients are not going to take this against me, but i i I learn once you guys tell me what to work on. So that's my primary source of learning, Anju. In terms of books, I think some books have really been uh, very influential towards me, like author R Gopalakrishnan, ex Tata guy. He's written a book,
Yeah.
When the Penny Drops. That book has been very very profound to me. The McKinsey Way has been very profound to me. These are old books; they are not new. They are not on the you know hot seat right now.
All right.
But some of these books have been very profound to me. Uh, I have read some tomes like you know uh, uh, there's this book Yugandhar by Shivaji Sawant. It's a this thick Hindi. It's originally in Marathi, but also translated into some 30 languages. So I read Yugandhar in Hindi, maybe some 1,200 pages by Shivaji Sawant. So that book has been very interesting to me, not related to management subjects or leadership subjects, but as we go through the story of Yugandhar, basically Arjun, uh, uh, you do pick up some learnings from there. But I didn't learn. I didn't read it to learn some things. I just read it because I was enjoying it. So these are my books. As I look up, just above this laptop are my bookshelf, and I'm looking at the books that have engaged me a lot. Yeah, I can think of these books as I look up to them.
What about podcast? Do you?
So again, podcast is basically, again, I learn while doing on some work. So if I have to work on some subject, uh, something like performance orientation. The latest hot topic with my clients is performance orientation for some reason. So I'm reading up a lot. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts on this subject, but not in a very. I mean, I don't. As I said, I'm not into reading normally. I don't. It's not that I have some free time and I read something. No, I don't do that. If I have some free time, I just play with my son, 5 years old, or look outside the window, or go for a walk and that kind of stuff. I don't read. I only read if I have to, work on some specific subject. Same thing with podcasts. Uh, I I I Google up specific subjects, and if an interesting podcast comes on that subject, I go through it. Otherwise, I don't.
Well, I actually thought you will have a laundry list of things because somebody who's in the advisory service space and very interesting. Well, Pawas, thank you so much. I think we did a much longer time slot than what we accommodated for, but I think it is fantastic. I think it's been just beautiful. So thank you so much. And to the audience and listeners, the details of how to reach Pawas are right below this podcast. So please click through, follow him. And he's also very approachable. So stay in touch and you'll only benefit. Thank you so much. Until we come back again, do make it a point to share with people because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who appreciate this conversation. And lastly, if you're not yet subscribed to Future Fast, do it right now. Powers, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nanju, and look forward to speak to you again.